my name's Rebecca. I'm from Innovative Bodywork, and I am here to talk to you today about carpal tunnel syndrome and repetitive stress injuries of the forearms, wrists, and hands. This is a hot topic in our society because as a culture, we've adapted to a lot of tasks that can cause repetitive stress injuries to the upper extremities. For example, the most common cause of repetitive stress injuries is from sitting at a desk and typing on your computer all day long. This position, really not friendly for the body if you're holding it for a long period of time. Anytime that you're holding the same position for a long period of time, that's going to be stretching some of your muscles and constricting some others. So if you're not taking breaks to stretch those muscles that are constricted and give some relief to those muscles that are stretching, you can end up with some of these repetitive stress injuries. With this position in particular, over time it's going to cause some fatigue, soreness, even pain in the hands, wrists, and forearms. You're going to get some constrictions here in the pecs, in your SCM and your scalene, so the front of your neck, and that's going to cause shoulder pain, it's going to cause neck pain, and depending on how long it's going on, it can even cause tingling sensations, numbness, or shooting pain down the arms. So I thought this would be an interesting topic to discuss, and what I'm going to do is break it down for you into two different pieces. The first piece here is going to be a look at anatomy, so anatomy of what's going on underneath the surface so we can kind of understand what's causing these repetitive stress injuries and how to avoid them. And the second part is going to be all about self-care, so we're going to get into some specific stretches, things you can do at the office, longer stretches you can do in the beginning of the day or the end of the day, some salt glows, sugar glows, ice massage, all that good stuff. Now, some of you are going to hear that and say, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and skip the anatomy part. I'm going to go right to the self-care because that sounds like fun. I would love it if you stick with me and just check out the anatomy. It can be really worthwhile if you can understand what's going on beneath the skin so that you have some awareness in the future, and that really can help you get more connected to your body and connected to the process so you can avoid these injuries to begin with. It's also important to note that these videos aren't just for people already experiencing symptoms of repetitive stress injuries or carpal tunnel syndrome. They can also help you avoid those conditions to begin with. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the anatomy portion. I'm doing this with pictures and voiceover, and just to give credit where credit is due, all of these pictures are from the Netter Anatomy application for iPhone. If you are a professional who references anatomy photos regularly, then I cannot recommend that application highly enough. I'm going to go ahead and throw a link in where you can download that from the App Store. It is awesome, and this video is purely for educational purposes, so please enjoy. So to get started here, we're going to look at the big bad boy that is causing the issues to begin with, the retinaculum at the wrist. The retinaculum is a thick piece of fascia that surrounds the wrist kind of like a wristband, and if you don't know what fascia is, let's just take a moment to explore that. Fascia is a type of connective tissue. It's in between all of our muscles, our bones, our ligaments, and it connects everything together. The really vivid example that I was given when I was taking anatomy is if you are used to getting a chicken breast with the skin on it from the grocery store. When you go to remove the skin, there's that thin, sticky layer of stuff in between the skin and the breast meat. That thin, sticky layer is the fascia. Fascia is something that actually changes with temperature and hydration. It can be almost solid if it has very poor hydration, poor circulation, and also if it's cold, just as a temperature-wise. When it's in that solid state, it also tightens, and that's something that can cause these repetitive stress injuries, and they can just cause pain in general, because when the connective tissue tightens, it tightens on the things that are around it, which can be muscles, tendons, ligaments. It can compress down on nerves and arteries, and we're going to be looking at that. The state that fascia prefers to be in is more of a gel-like state, a liquidy state. And it's in that liquidy state when it's getting enough movement from stretching, when it's getting good circulation in there, good blood flow, good lymph drainage, and when it's also hydrated enough. So that can be as simple as just making sure you're drinking enough water. So the carpal tunnel itself is made from this retinaculum. There are little bones in the hands, the carpals, as you can see in this next picture. The carpals are the little square bones at the base of the wrist and the beginning of the hand. So if you're looking at the longer bones there, those are the metacarpals. We're not going to be focusing on those right now. The lower carpals are the ones that are going to be most interesting to us because they are concave. So if you're looking at the back of your hand, anatomically speaking, they're going to be like a bridge almost. And then if you look on the underside of your hand, they're going to be more like a groove. And the retinaculum, specifically on that side, it's the flexor retinaculum, is going to connect the two end carpals together. And because the carpals are making kind of that groove shape, you end up with a tunnel in between them. And that's literally the carpal tunnel. Through that tunnel, there are going to be tendons and nerves and arteries, all of those things that need to give supply to the hand itself. So you can see that that retinaculum is pretty darn important, and if it gets constricted, so again, more that solid state, that dried out state, it's going to put pressure on everything that's going through that carpal tunnel. So I want to take a broader view of the arm. The arm view you're looking at right now is the flexor view, so that's the front of your body, anatomically speaking. And I just want you to take a look at the structures there. I know a lot of you aren't going to know what you're looking at, and that's okay. This is just a broad overview. But basically, all those pink structures, those are going to be muscle bellies. The white is where they lead into ligaments. They lead into tendons. There are some ligaments in that picture. And then you're also going to see that there are some of those yellow and red structures going through. The yellow in these pictures are nerves. The red is going to be your arteries. So let's look at something more specific. Still looking at that flexor view, we're going to look at the median nerve. The median nerve runs from the brachial plexus, which comes under the collarbone. So if you're looking at the top right of that picture, you'll see the little red sticking out under the collarbone. It's going to run from that area all the way down the arm into the hand. That's one of the most common nerves to be compressed in from repetitive stress injuries from this carpal tunnel. And it's also the nerve that people tend to feel shooting pain down if there's restrictions up at the pec and the anterior neck area. The other nerve that you're going to find running down is going to be the ulnar nerve. And same thing with the medial nerve. When that guy gets compressed, that can cause some shooting and numbness down the arm as well. So now let's look a little more here at the retinaculum again. This is the same picture that you saw to begin with, but we're going to be moving into the forearm. So just to look at those forearm muscles, you'll see around the coming from the back of the elbow, let's say, there are these thick muscle bellies. These muscles that you're looking at are actually the muscles that are controlling your fingers. When those muscles in the forearm contract, on this side, that's going to be flexing your fingers. On the other side, the back of the forearm, those are the muscles that are going to be extending your fingers. So we're still just looking at the flexor side right now. So you can see that if that retinaculum at the base of the wrist gets really tight, it's going to be a lot harder for you to move your fingers because the muscle bellies are way up above it and they need to be able to contract to move things. If the fascia is fighting them there, you're going to have limited mobility in the hands and it's just going to feel kind of tight and even painful. Now looking at the extensor side, this picture has the retinaculum cut away. So just picture in your mind that the same band that you saw on the flexor side going over the wrist does exist on the extensor side. It really wraps completely around the wrist, just like a wristband. But I wanted to show you the extensor side so you can see how large and formed these muscles are that are controlling our hands and our wrist movement, and how they all come from the forearm. It's a really important concept because a lot of the work that we're going to be doing in the next video is loosening up the forearm, and you'll see how that will actually affect the hand movement itself. Now let's get a little closer down and look at the hand itself. And we're going to go ahead and start with the nerves. So looking at this picture, you will see the yellow coming down. Those are the nerves, and that's bringing all of the sensation that you get to the hand, or really allowing the hand to speak back to the brain. So you're feeling those sensations accurately and you can respond to them accurately. So you'll see that if your fascia gets tight, and in this picture, most of that retinaculum's cut away, but you can still see some of the connective tissues in there. You can see when that gets tight, that's going to limit the sensations that you feel in your hands. That can cause pain, but it can also cause tingling and numbness sensations. Taking another view, still focusing on these nerves, you can see the nerves coming in a little bit more detailed here. This is going to be the median nerve that we're looking at. So this is the one that you saw comes down the middle of the forearm there, and it's going now straight through the middle of the hand. Looking at the ulnar nerve now, we can see that that's coming in on the medial part of the hand, so closer to the midline. And that is one that definitely gets constricted with that brachial plexus constriction from the pecs. So even though you might be feeling that tingling and numbness down into the hand, it could be coming from the forearm or from even higher up in the shoulder area. It is important to know that tingling and numbness in the hands is not always repetitive stress injuries or carpal tunnel. There are a variety of things that can cause that. And I should definitely mention, for the sake of it, that if you are concerned about tingling, numbness, or pain in the hands, it's never a bad idea to have that checked out by a doctor before you seek any sort of other therapies. So that's a really brief overview of what's going on anatomically with the carpal tunnel and how that can affect repetitive stress injuries, cause carpal tunnel syndrome, and how some of the numbness, tingling, lack of sensation, increased sensation, all of these symptoms can be caused by that carpal tunnel drying out and causing compression on the wrist. In the next video, please stay tuned for ways that you can actually relieve some of the symptoms of repetitive stress and carpal tunnel syndrome and how you can avoid them to begin with. I hope you enjoy.